Did you know that nearly 70% of the people who start their New Year's resolutions and goals have quit them by February? You're probably not surprised by this. And as someone who has been a part of that statistic, I finally realized that my thought life had such a gigantic and huge impact on the way that I was able or not able to achieve my goals. And as a licensed therapist for over 10 years, as well as a self professed gym rat who's lost over 40 pounds naturally and in a healthy way, I know just how damaging but also powerful that our thoughts can be. And so today I want to share with you some thoughts that I want you to leave behind in 2024 and take some new thoughts into 2025. So if you are ready, let's get started. What's up, mamas? Alexandria here, 35-year-old toddler mom, but I'm also a licensed therapist as well as a self-professed gym rat. The idea of self-sabotage really is around what we set our mind to, and there's a lot of great research and data to suggest that the things that we put our mind to, we are more capable of. Not because of anything life shattering, really. It's more about what we're putting our time and energy to. For example, if I say I am going to reach my goals in 2025 and nothing is going to stop me from that, I'm putting myself in the mindset against self sabotage. But if I say to myself, maybe I might, 2025 might be my year, maybe I could sort of, I've already given myself an out. And we're much more likely to engage in self sabotaging thoughts and behaviors when we're not fully committed to the idea of, yes, this is my year, because stuff's going to come up and we have to be able to fight those out. Self sabotaging thoughts. So let's go through some of these thoughts that I want you to help you like take out the trash on in 2025. Thought life number one, I'll never be able to do this. I just talked about this 10 seconds ago. But the idea of I'll never be able to do this oftentimes comes from a lack of fulfilling promises to ourselves in the past. And as I've said, maybe you're one of those people who has spent year after year trying to meet your goals. And every year you feel like you fail and it doesn't go the way you wanted it to. And so you have that data and knowledge in your brain to tell you that you can't do that would suggest otherwise. But the thing that can be different about this year as opposed to last year or any of the other years before is that you can allow yourself to let go of that and make peace with the fact that just because you didn't reach those goals doesn't mean you can't do it now. It took me nearly 20 years, essentially. I was not even 20 years, but I was overweight for most of my adult life. And it took me being 30 years old and having a kid and having a meaning and a reason to really feel like I needed to get healthy in order for me to be ready to make that change. And so sometimes we're just not ready in those previous years. But now can be your time, and saying that you'll never achieve it, if you really truly believe that, until you change that thinking, you never will. Because the second something comes up or second something goes not the way you wanted it to or goes awry, you are going to accept defeat, as opposed to someone who says this is my year. I'm going to do what it takes, because those people are the ones who are not going to allow obstacles to get in their way in the same way that those who genuinely just don't believe they can. And again, I get it. I understand why when you've tried and failed for so many times, it can feel really discouraging. But I think the difference between the people who are successful and unsuccessful are the mindset that they can do it, but also the knowledge that they're going to hold themselves to their commitments. And I just talked about this in a recent video of the you owe you an explanation. You're the one that's going to hold yourself accountable to it. Thought number two, I'll start tomorrow. And I feel like this is one of those things where, especially when we think about the new year, everybody's like, well, I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. I'll start tomorrow. And that's all fine and dandy. The problem is that kind of thinking is a procrastination strategy, because you're waiting for the perfect time to set up for this new habit. The problem is that life isn't perfect and ish is going to come up. It just is, regardless of what season your life is in. And so if you only wait for the perfect time to eat healthy foods or to take care of your body and get your movement, then you're never going to see or reach the goals that you're going to want to reach. Because the second that something doesn't go absolutely perfectly in your schedule, you're going to stop doing that behavior. So rather than focusing on changing everything all at one time, create those micro habits and build the confidence in yourself so that when things do come awry, you've already built in those sort of safety measures. For example, right now, this is a really tricky season for me. I'll be honest, my mental health is not great. Got a lot of stuff going on. I've got 2 cats in cones for different injuries. My life is pretty crazy right now, but I am still making time for movement. I'm not making as much time for movement as I typically do. I'm only working out for like 20 to 30 minutes, during my workouts, but I'm still working out. I'm still getting the movement in. Am I necessarily going to move the pendulum like super far in terms of reaching my goals? Maybe not in the way that I would if I were dialing it in a bit more, but I'm still making time for those healthy habits because at the end of the day, they are a lifestyle. And so rather than saying, I'll start tomorrow or I'll start when it's perfect, genuinely start now, because sometimes the absolute hardest part is just pressing play on the workout or just getting the ingredients to make the healthy meal. The hardest part is getting started. And once you've started and once you've made a plan, then everything else can fall into place. But if you're waiting for the perfect time and the I'll start tomorrow, it's not going to come. So let that go and embrace the fact that life is going to happen, but you're going to do it anyway. Life is going to get hard, but I'll do it anyway. In the same vein of perfection, it's this piece of if I can't do it perfectly, I won't do it. And I think, especially those of us who are millennials and probably people pleasers like myself, we get stuck into this trap of if it's not perfect, then I'm not going to do it. And I sometimes fall into this trap even with like YouTube content. Like if it's not great, I'm not going to create it. Well, the problem with that, again, just like in the last thought, is that if we're only going to do things when they're perfect, then we're not going to be able to accomplish our goals. And I think the sort of all or none thinking that we fall into, this like impossible trap of all or none, if we can't do at least an hour workout, or if we can't eat absolutely perfectly from a nutrition standpoint, then why bother? And I think if we can get out of that space of this all or none strategy and recognize that some is better than none, then we are able to reach our goals. Because the reality is that there's not always going to be an occasion where we're going to be able to dial in perfectly every single time. And it's about giving ourselves grace in those moments and saying like, okay, hey, my nutrition wasn't great for lunch, but dinner is a new meal. Or, I have time for 20 minutes today. A 20-minute workout is better than no workout at all. Even a 5 or 10-minute workout or movement is better than no workout at all, because you're still taking care of your body. But still, something is better than nothing at all. And being like, if it's not perfect, I'm not going to do it, is going to get you, it's going to keep you stuck because it's not going to be able to propel you forward. Listen, guys, if you're finding this video useful or helpful, could you do me a huge favor and give this video a thumbs up? It just lets YouTube know that this video is useful and helpful and helps it direct to the people who need to hear it just like we do. The next thought is I don't deserve to be fit or healthy. And I feel like this is one of those traps that comes a lot in with trauma and with those who have been through like traumatic experiences, because oftentimes I think the takeaway from that is that I don't deserve good things to happen to me. And I think being healthy and fit can kind of fall in that. And so rather than believing that you don't deserve that, put the shoe on the other foot, right? If your best friend, if your kid, if your significant other, if they were to say that to you, what would you say to them? Ask yourself, like, why not me? Why does everyone else deserve it except for me? And this is one of those thoughts that I think may be most beneficial for some like real, actual talk therapy, because oftentimes I feel like this one comes from like a self-doubt place and from a self-esteem place that just, it can't be dealt with fully in a YouTube video. And while I always hope that these videos are useful and serve to help an audience, the reality is that I'm not your personal. You're not sitting in my office. We can't dive into your whole life story here in just one video. And so some of these things probably feel superficial to you because that's the best that we can do in this type of setting. And so I say that if you're feeling like this isn't enough, then perhaps seeking professional support from another licensed therapist who's like actually in the room with you can be extremely valuable, because there's only so much that we can cover in a single video. And so if this doesn't feel like enough for you, I would highly recommend seeking a therapist. I'll link some resources for how to find a therapist in your area in case that's something that you want to explore, because I really do feel like this one is very much like a trauma self-esteem response thing. And so in order to get out of that, we do have to figure out what it's going to take to believe in ourselves. And that really just is a deep dive discussion with somebody who can get to know you on a person. For me having self-esteem around like exercise and getting fit was actually really about like seeing that I could do hard things. And I've mentioned my whoop strap before, but I'm going to mention it again. Again, not sponsored in any way. It's just a really useful tool to me. Is the whoop strap showed me like what my body was capable of, because oftentimes my mind, generally speaking, our mind quits before our body does. And so having like the physical stats was a really useful like mind trick for me to see, oh, hey, wait, your body is actually fine. You're not going to like have an attack. So I've told this story before, so forgive me if you've heard it before, but that's my reality. The next one is that being healthy is just too expensive. Okay, I can appreciate this because I do feel like there is a certain level of like expense that can sort of come with, can feel like an expensive lifestyle that can come with like certain types of workout clothes or like certain types of foods and things like that. But the reality is that there are no, like, there's only trade offs in the grand scheme of things. There are no real choices. There really are just trade offs. And so you're making a trade off when you're choosing not to be healthy or fit because of, the cost factor involved. The trade off is a monetary value thing, but there are ways to be healthy and fit without needing to spend hundreds and thousands of dollars on things. Now, granted, I do think that there's some like value to noting that like vegetables and fruit cost more than some of these like more processed foods. But perhaps when we are considering like what we're allocating our expenses to, if that's really important to us to eat healthier, then we might have to look at and evaluate financially where we can make changes and shifts. And it's one of those things where I recognize that there's like an economic, the word disparaging, my brain is not. There's like a disparity between like from a cost of living standpoint, and that part I can understand. But I do think that there are ways that are financially savvy to also be healthy and fit. But in order to do that, we have to recognize first that we're thinking in that way and that we actually want to make the change rather than just using that as the reason why we can't. Because sure, absolutely, if you go to Whole Foods, you absolutely are going to spend more on catching a cat. You're absolutely going to spend more money on some of the foods than if you went to somewhere like, I don't know, a Food Line. Even for the same like products. You don't need, is it pronounced Iwan? Help me. I don't even know. But like you don't need $20 smoothies to be able to be healthy and fit. You don't need, bougie gym, memberships to be able to get fit. You need a pair of dumbbells and to prioritize protein and fruits and vegetables. And I do think that that is possible in a financially savvy. So don't believe the crazy Instagram, TikTok hype that you need all the fancy ish, because you don't, to be healthy. This next one like kind of irks me a little bit, but I can also appreciate it because I used to be one of these people of exercise is boring. Okay, I get it. I feel like exercise can be boring if you're doing things that aren't interesting to you. But one of the things that I have found to me that's been really surprising is how much I actually do enjoy things that I thought would be more mundane. Like I never imagined myself in 100 years doing weightlifting or strength training because in my head that was always boring and uninteresting. But one of the things that I have found is that as I learn and grow in strength training, I have found interest in it in almost like a meditative state of sorts when I lift weights and when I strength train, as opposed to, when I would try to lift weights and do things like that before, like I was just ready to get out of the gym. But really studying and understanding the like mind body connection, it's crazy just the way that can feel sort of like meditative and what is even the word, like just power provoking. Is that what I'm looking for? But the reality is that you can choose your exercise, and if you thinking that exercise is boring is keeping you from reaching your goals, then pick something that you don't think is boring. For me, when I started, dance was my thing, Zumba was my thing, because Zumba was not boring. Like, turn on some music and your girl is there. And my cat is everywhere right now. She wants me to feed her, which I need to go do. There's her again. I was one of those people. I was like, well, this kind of crap is boring. But Zumba and dance for me wasn't boring. And so if you are wanting to start working out in 2025, choose the path of least resistance. Pick the thing that doesn't feel boring to you, because I promise that you will get to your goals if you continue to stay consistent, because the consistency of the diet, the consistency of the eating healthy foods, and the consistency of, living in a calorie deficit, and the consistency of just getting your movement in matters far more than the like nitpicky-ish. It matters far more than like, am I going to be carnivore? Am I going to be keto? Am I going to eat, only salads? Please don't do that. Those sort of things. That matters so much more then the consistency of it all matters so much more than like the actual exercise that you pick. There are legitimate reasons for choosing something like strength training from like a bone density standpoint and from like an overall health and fitness and wellness standpoint. But if that's really just too boring for you right now, then start it somewhere that isn't boring and go from there because that is a-okay too. And you will eventually get to your goals if you stick to the plan. The last one is once I reach my goals, I'll go back to my old habits. And the reality of it is you need to go into 2025 really into 2025 with the mindset and the realization that this is a lifestyle. Okay, sorry, Gilmore Girls reference. If you can wrap your brain around the idea that this is actually a lifestyle, and it's not a lifestyle that sucks either, I promise, because I feel like people think like, oh, well, her life must suck or be boring because she's eating all these boring foods and doing all this boring exercise. But I promise you, my life is so fulfilled taking care of my body, and I just feel so much better as a person. So go into it knowing that you're going to come out the other side of this as a different person. And that's a good thing. It's a little scary probably, but it's a good thing. These are not going to be just like quick blips on the radar of like only eating like 500 calories. That's not healthy and that's not sustainable. What's going to keep you, as I said in the previous, is what's going to sustain you long term are making micro habits and change for the long haul. So it's not just about like, let me get fit by February so that I can live the rest of my life like that. It's about getting fit and staying healthy and continuing to take care of your body for the long haul. And listen, if you found this video useful or helpful, I would love if you would give this video a thumbs up. And please, I would love if you would subscribe and let me be your non-judgy mom friend who comes alongside you to help you reach your goals. Till next time, bye friends.